Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Eli,
And this is James.
and this is Tech Talk. We're going to continue our conversation today with James, where I ask 3 questions about technology. Technology in churches, and you know how complex can be. It's just because technology is complicated as it is. But this is Eli Navas from Hope for Today TV, and this is my dear and amazing friend James from Networks Audio Video.
Oh,
I did it. I did
You
it.
did it.
I
You did it.
I did
Awesome.
Yes. Networks Audio Video is the sponsor of Tech Talk. Finally, my brother-in-law will be so proud of me, and even my wife. I haven't been able to say it, but still, I did it. Networks Audio Video.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have nightmares. Okay, James, are you ready for the round of 3 questions?
Yes.
Wireless microphones are very important for use in a church. What 3 things are important when selecting a wireless microphone?
I think that if the first thing I'm going to say might be close to you, and that is digital. Some people would say digital is a must. When you go to a digital wireless, it is just like so much better and different. And I don't know, you might be able to talk about that too.
Wireless microphones are really important, and especially when they are digital, because as you know, James is not just my friend and my sponsor, but also he introduced me to really great technology. That's the reason why we're doing this. And the frequencies are really important in all these regards, but also the digital microphones are, it's like day and night. But explain us, why do you can give us a really good point of view from the tech side about why the wireless mics, digitals, are better than the analogs?
Well, digital, the reception is better, and it's not affected by when you get a little bit farther away from it.
Yes.
Where on an analog, you might hear a little bit of stressing, a bit like if you're driving a car and you have the FM radio and you're driving far and you kind of hear a little bit of a staticky noise. It still works, but it's kind of staticky. Digitals either work or they don't. They're either on or they're off. And so you don't get any of that noise on it. And it makes the experience with a digital wireless mic that much better in that sense, because it is noise free. The other thing too is that the quality of the microphone gets transmitted better as well too, because on analog technology, because the width of frequency available to make that transmission is only a certain width, and the actual audio is wider than that width. When it tries to get squashed into those frequencies, what tends to happen is that the audio starts out wide, it gets shrunk, transmitted, and then at the receiver it gets widened again. And so sometimes you get a little bit of a change in how it sounds. And with a digital microphone, it just transmits it clearly all the way through, so you do get a more true, a more natural sound on your microphone. But although digital microphones are great, they're nice, I still think frequency availability is more important. And the reason is that the frequency that your microphone is operating on is key. If you have a frequency which is, within a certain megahertz range, whatever that is, or gigahertz range, it has a lot to do with, at that point, how far your transmission is going to be reliably. Like if you have, as an example, a 500 megahertz band microphone, you'll have, reliably about 100 meters of transmission, interference-free line of sight. And if you have, let's say, something which is maybe in the 900 megahertz range, you're probably closer to about 60 meters. And if you are in the Wi-Fi range, 2.4 gigahertz, you're probably about 30 meters. So as the frequency range goes up, your distance starts to shorten. And as you start to have interference and other things, or people coming in with their cell phones or using Wi-Fi things or whatnot, and having basically all the Wi-Fi turned on, it can cause some interference to take place and reduce the effectiveness of your wireless mic, especially if you have something which is in the 2.4 gigahertz. And so that range of 100 feet may now be realistically about 70 feet. And so when you look at that, frequency is very important. And a lot of digital mics that are, we'll say, of value or economical are in the shorter ranges. In other words, they're in that 2.4 gigahertz range, so your range is shortened. Some
I have
are
a quick
within.
question for you. I'm sorry for the interruption, because you are saying something really important right now that I just want to make sure, because is the positioning of the base of the monitor, the receptor, is as important as the microphone. Am I right? Because you're talking about frequencies, yes, and you're talking about everything else. But sometimes what I have to face in the midst of having a digital wireless microphone, sometimes I have that frequency interruption. And let me make a sound with my voice just to explain what it is. It's like that. And it happens to me that I asked James what was the problem. He said, you have your receptor for the wireless mic underneath something, close to something. So can you tell us a little bit more about the positioning of the receptor of the wireless microphone, the importance it plays?
Yes, absolutely. So first off, if you're getting sounds like that, more than likely it's on an analog receiver, whereas a digital, it's on or off. You don't really get noises on digital. The noises are something more often on an analog.
Okay.
And so when you have a wireless receiver, regardless of its frequency range, if you have one that has antennas built into it, then you're unable to direct the antennas. Something like this, normally you want it to be a very short range. So as an example, I have a microphone, I'm on the stage, I want my receiver more than likely on the stage, line of sight, nothing in between me and the receiver.
Really?
If it's one with detachable antennas, or antennas, we'll say, that I'm able to direct the antennas, then at that point I want to be able to make sure that my antennas are maybe a little bit, not perfectly straight, but a little bit off to angles. Yeah, and the reason is because of, if I'm moving my microphone and I'm varying how my microphone is, it varies how the transmission is. And so with the antennas slightly different, it means that they'll be able to catch those variations. And then I'm able to direct the receiver as well, if I need to line up so that both antennas are have a clean line of sight towards the transmitter. Another thing too is people absorb radio frequency transmissions. And
okay. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew it, but I was not completely aware.
Yeah, you knew you were absorbing a lot of energy, but you didn't know where it was coming from.
What are you trying to say? I'm fluffy. I'm just like, this is just an allergic reaction to something. I'm not fat. I'm just sore.
It's okay. I've been absorbing a lot of energy too.
Okay.
So what happens is that when you have a transmitter, whether it's handheld or body pack or whatnot, it's transmitting the signal and the receiver is trying to receive it. If the receiver is, on the other side of the room, and it's at a height that it has to go through all the people that are in the congregation, by the time your signal gets there from the line of sight, it's going to be very reduced. And you might not have a lot of power coming to it. You might have to rely on reflections that come off of the walls or ceiling or whatnot in order to get there. Okay. And so that means your reception is unreliable. And oftentimes what you need to do is take that receiver and place it higher up, so that you have something that goes over the heads of the congregation. Or even if your receiver has removable antennas, is to take the antennas off and then to place them higher,
Okay, and regarding this, what are the maybe, let's say, 3 actions that you can tell us? You already said one about the detachable antennas. Just put it in a different position or higher position just to catch the frequencies. What other things can you tell us to take as an action to fix this?
So action, I think before getting into the action, I want to roll back because
Okay.
I was talking about 500 megahertz, but I didn't talk about some of the other frequencies too much.
Okay.
I know that we mentioned that 500 megahertz has a longer range. 900 megahertz is a shorter one. A 2.4 is the shortest, we'll say, of those ranges. And on the economic digitals, you have the 2.4 gigahertz. There are some in the 900 megahertz as well too. And the reason is because these are kind of like still in unlicensed areas, and it's easier for somebody to manufacture something in 2.4 gigahertz and ship it internationally, because internationally Wi-Fi is unlicensed everywhere. So from a manufacturer point of view, it's one SKU. So they love to do that. But and they like to say that it's interference free. They like to say that it's that you don't have an issue with having to change from one frequency group to another, because there have been some frequency reallocations. But the thing is that you do have issues with interference. You do have issues with range. If you want a good quality digital wireless mic, it is in the 500 megahertz range, because you do have that longer longer range that you need to acquire. You do have the ability to put external antennas and so on. And I remember you did have a change from analog to digital wireless, and when you did have that change, it was in that 500 megahertz range. So you had that reliable transmission. Mind you, it was not a low-cost microphone, less than $500. It was over $1,000 each microphone. But the thing is that it had that capability. But that being said, you can get analog microphones still, even for $500 or less, that are in the 500 megahertz range. And what that means is that you have that long transmission capability and that reliable transmission capability. You may have a slightly different sound than a digital one. You may potentially have a slight noise on it, but oftentimes you can change it to a different frequency by scanning and changing to a different frequency, and you can still get something great out of it.
I remember one of these days, or maybe I will say, I remember that I was asking you once regarding what is the price range of a really reliable microphone. You told me that if it's below $800, you might face some challenges and issues, but over $800, remember, again, I will repeat it as many times as I can, is not spending, is investing in a long-term with God's money. Is investing in a long-term plan, because that's the reason why you have to have a plan. If you don't know how to make a plan, we were talking about it before, like 2 or 3 episodes before. But remember, you have to invest the money and you have to be wise regarding that. I remember that my first Sennheiser microphone that I purchased literally 20 years ago. It was digital. It was one of the first one. And you know what? That church is still using the same microphone and no issues at all. So think about it in regarding the prices. So in that, take us to the actions that you mentioned, looking for a wireless mic that is over 500 megahertz, and look for the receivers that are detachable with antennas. And also you mentioned about the wireless mics that have a better sound quality. In saying that, or summarizing everything, take us to the question number 2. There have been changes in the frequency stability for wireless microphones, and some talk about 600 megahertz. Can you tell us more about this and why it should matter to a church in these current times? Because believe it or not, this is an issue that it has been since 2018, I believe. That we were talking about the frequencies that were about to change in 2020. So we're right now in 2020. So can you tell us more about those changes of frequencies regarding wireless mics?
Yeah, so I think it was about 2017 or so, they started talking about changing this over because in the US they had already started. And that was with the reallocation of frequencies. And years before that, they had shifted the 700 megahertz range. And so previously, wireless microphones were available in 500, 600, 700 megahertz range. And that was kind of like where they were. They were working pretty well in those, free to use, unlicensed areas because they were sharing it with television channels. But as the television channels were changing from analog to digital, they started freeing up some of that airspace so that they could use it for other things.
Okay.
And so the latest round, the 600 megahertz group of frequencies, which is pretty much like 608 to 698, has been reallocated for the new 5G for wireless telecom.
Okay.
And before, this was television channels. And what they used to do is they would have a television channel here and a television channel here and a space in between, because they would never put television channels side by side. They would always space them out so that as you had the transmission towers in the different locations, someone further away in another place would have their frequency in the middle, and then maybe another channel off to the side, and so on and so forth. So they were kind of planned to be apart so that it would give the least amount of interference between television transmissions. And so oftentimes with a wireless mic, you could find your space in between and just tune an available frequency, and it would work great. And you didn't have to license it. But now with the 5G, it's different in the sense that they are not going to put a channel here and a channel there and leave a space. They're going to use the whole thing.
Okay.
And it's just because of the way the digital technology works, it's going to be more broadband across everything.
Okay.
And what that means is that, for one, if you have a receiver that's in the 600 megahertz range, you're going to have a much higher opportunity for receiving interference. And also, because it's not television channels anymore, now it's in the telecom space, it's actually going to be illegal for you to use your wireless mic when that technology is turned on. If you are operating in a frequency which could interfere with what they're doing, then it would be considered illegal. So at this point, anything from 608 to 698, you're supposed to turn it off.
You clarify what it means illegal in this case?
Illegal in the case that if you actually turn it on and you could cause interference to somebody who is trying to use that service. In other words, someone within your church walks in and has a phone with 5G and is trying to do something. Maybe they're trying to browse or whatever they're trying to do on their phone. If your wireless mic causes interference on that phone, and the person complains that about this to the authorities, the authorities could come over to your church, see that you have a 600 megahertz microphone, and fine you for that.
Wow. So it's a real thing. It's
a real
joke.
Thing.
Okay,
it's a real
so
thing.
let me pause you for a second. So what you're saying is, like, if we as churches don't change our wireless microphones to the frequencies that now we are allowed, we can be fined for complaints, not from the customers, because the customers are going to be with the cell phones in the church, but from the big cell phone companies and telecommunications, because we have not done the right thing. And that's the main reason why when you and me were talking about this specific tech talk, I was just like, yes, finally we were going to talk about something that I really experienced in the first hand, because the reality is the same one. I know the pandemic is and the virus is just like hitting all the atmosphere everywhere, every color of churches, every size, and it's not discriminating. So the main reason why, remember, the main reason why we partner with James on Tech Talk is just to advise you the best way possible, just to make sure that you have all your measurements in place, because that's the reason why I said, okay, when you say you can, it's illegal, I mean, that is an implication of something that you can face in the authorities just because you don't want to change. And again,
Sorry. Let me clarify.
okay,
Analog microphones are fine. It's not that analog or digital. It's not a question of analog or digital.
it's about frequency.
It's to do with the transmission frequency.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so the frequency of your wireless microphone, whether it's analog, whether it's digital, it cannot operate on the 600 megahertz band between 608 and 698. If it does, you are no longer allowed. Industry Canada has sold those frequencies off to the telecom companies. Rogers bought up most of it in this area. And the thing is that you cannot operate on these frequencies. Okay. If you do, Industry Canada can, if there's a complaint lodged to them, they can come over, they can verify this. If you are using a frequency that causes that kind of interference, they can give you a fine, or call it convict you or whatever, based on whatever guidelines they have. And whether that includes jail time or what, I have no idea. But the thing is that they can do something. And I am not talking to you so much and to say, be afraid that someone's going to come knocking on your door and catch you using a wireless microphone that you shouldn't. What I'm saying to you is that I doubt you're going to be causing interference to somebody's wireless phone. Because I think long before that, you're going to get massive interference on your wireless microphone. Mm-hmm. And more than likely, it's going to come through in very loud noises.
And this is the important part of what we're talking, because, again, remember, I'm a pastor, I'm a worship pastor, and I deal with technology. And this, let's call it oopsie daisies that I make, like, oh, don't buy analog. It was wrong, and I'm happy that I said it, because that's the reason why I have James. Because, again, correcting myself, it's not about analogs or digital, it's about the frequencies. And it's not about being scared, but being aware that it will cause a lot of interference into the devices. Am I right? So James already talked about the actions that we can take regarding this.
Yeah, hold on. I'm not done yet. There's still more. What has happened is that the wireless telecom providers have been working on 5G bit by bit, and they have been getting the towers into place and turning things on, and they've still been doing this during the pandemic. But all the churches right now being closed, nobody's using their wireless mics. They got no idea what's taking place. They don't know if they have interference or not. And as they return to worship in September, October, November, December, whenever it is that they're going to come back into their buildings, their wireless microphones may be going like full out, like this, and, causing who knows what kind of noise. And I think that right now, churches, I am hoping that technology partners and wireless mic vendors have been warning churches about this. I hope this is not new to you, but I'm telling you, if it is, then this is a reality. You need to be concerned about it. Because
sorry to disappoint you, because I didn't know about this specific one, that they have continued working on the 5G during the pandemic. I thought that everything was a stop and everyone was just like kumbaya.
No.
Let's come back and that's all.
If you had work that was face-to-face with clients, you had to stop that. But if you had work that you were doing because it was essential work, is the cell phone essential?
Oh, yes, please.
There you go.
And where am I going to play Candy Crush?
And all the upgrades are essential. So believe me, they did not stop. They kept on going.
Wow.
And 5G was supposed to be launched in 2020. And guess what? We're still in 2020. But as we get more towards the end of the year, and there's already been talk. I mean, I think we've been hearing about telecom vendors now offering packages for 5G. So it's going to start turning, they're going to be turning on the transmitters here and there. And as that happens, we're going to have more and more issues with this. So the people that have 600 megahertz wireless microphones, you want to get those out of your system as soon as possible, because you could be causing yourself headaches, and you could be left in a position that if your wireless mic was the main microphone being used for your pastor or for your worship leader, you may end up without a microphone. And so you need to look at that immediately. And
Wow.
yeah,
And did-
and that,
and-
and
and I
that
will-
I think would lead me to my action, is verify
Hold on,
the
before you go to
frequencies.
your actions, I have something to say. Listen, this is the reason why I do Tech Talk, because I'm just discovering these things right now, because I thought that because just of the pandemic, everything was just like settled down and everything was easy for everyone, but I didn't know. So there's a conspiracy working against churches? No. But they are continuing working on those things, and you have to put your eyes. So right now, remember, I'm learning with this, and this is the reason why I said, James, we have to do these things, because no one is talking. I watch the news, and no one is talking about the implementation of 5G and what are the consequences on churches. And again, this is not a conspiracy theory or anything, but you that is watching me are learning from this guy over here, from James, that he is telling us what do we have to do regarding this. Now he is free. Be free, James. Tell us the actions we have to take.
Okay, you want to verify the frequencies on your wireless mics. And so if you have a belt pack transmitter, you want to flip it to the back and read the frequencies on it. If you have maybe a handheld microphone of some kind, you'll want to open that up and verify whatever frequencies it has on the inside of that. So you want to know what the frequency is. If your frequency is anywhere, if it ranges between 608 and 698, you cannot use it. You need to get rid of it. You need to do something else. At the same time, if you have a wireless microphone that might be 500 and something megahertz and goes to 600 over 608, if it can be tuned to a frequency over 608, you are not allowed to use that mic. Even if you tune it to a frequency below, you are not allowed to use that mic. And so from a legal point of view, so if something were to happen and someone were to investigate and whatnot, so but again, it's like the chances of you being the problem is like almost nil. The chance of you receiving the problem is like, I'm going to say 100%.
Hi everyone, this is Editing Eli in the future. If you like the video, please subscribe, press the notification bell, like the video, and this video is cut off in 2 parts because the information is so good that I cannot allow you to stay longer than what it is, because it's exactly what we need to know regarding information in wireless microphones, digitals and analogs. So I will see you next week in part 2 about wireless microphones, digital versus analog.